Om Tat Sat. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, to Sage Narada, and all the sages and saints, and to each of you divine soul watching today's satsang. So today we will be studying Sutra number 15 from the Narada Bhakti Sutras, Chapter 1, Nature of Parabhakti or Supreme Devotion. Commentaries by my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, and narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let's get started. Sutra 15. Tat lakshanani vachyante nana matbhedat. Tat lakshanani vachyante Nana Matbhedata, meaning now we proceed to describe the various characteristics of supreme devotion from different viewpoints. So Parabhakti, supreme devotion. So not just devotion, we have to get to the supreme devotion. And so Sage Narada will now in this sutra and the following sutras will be discussing different viewpoints of how do we achieve that state. Explanation: though the experience of Parabhakti or supreme devotion is the same, its characteristics are defined differently by different exponents of devotion. So each sage who has realized Parabhakti through his own personal experience has been expressed because they have shared their views with the masses in a different light. The knowledge is the same, but expression is different. The reason is simple. The inner experience of a devotee transcends the intellect, ego, mind, senses, and body. So only at that deepest level can we experience Parabhakti. It cannot be described in words theoretically, but nevertheless, sages have compassion for us, so therefore they endeavor to share their knowledge with the help of the limited instruments of mind and speech, just like we are doing right now. You are using your ears to listen, I'm using my voice to express. While we know that these are limited, but we still have to do the best with these senses to evolve. So differences in describing the same devotional process arise automatically. But in spite of apparent differences, we have to know that the underlying truth is the same. There is no dispute or change there, but how to get to that path. Religions do the same thing. They may be reaching to God through their way, but that is not the only way. There are other people who are also reaching God through their way. And so to say this is the only way cannot be the right answer. God is one and he has given us multiple ways to reach to him. The Vedas have declared Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is only one, but expressed in different ways. The wise speak of it in different ways. So, if a person is a true devotee of God, he would find no need to contradict any religious movement. Rather, he would reveal the unity underlying all religions. That is what true sages and saints do. So, if you see people criticizing other religions or people telling you, oh, just come to our structure and then don't go anywhere else, otherwise you will not be a true devotee, or just pray to this God and not to others, or do this and not others, who are very restrictive and who stop you from increasing your knowledge and increasing your advancement, cannot be true religions. They are just cults or small pools of water. But you need to become like an ocean. You want to belong to the universe, and in order to do that, true sages and saints encourage you to seek knowledge, to grow, and to get enlightened. So that is the the meaning of this Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. There are other reasons for the different views held by sages and saints also. Every spiritual personality tries to present the truth on the basis of their life experiences. So even during the course of the sadhana or spiritual practice, if he had given more emphasis to nama japa, nama smaran, mantra, then he will do so even after enlightenment. He will say continue to do that because he achieved it through that path. In his teachings, he would emphasize this repetition. And then there are others who will achieve that truth through deep meditation or through karma yoga, selfless service, etc., or study of scriptures, deep Upanishadic knowledge, and so on. Yet, even though they teach one specialized aspect of sadhana, they all recognize and value the different views of others. There is no contradicting. It is understanding that we can reach different ways. That is why the process that our Guruji has so lovingly explained, actually Shivananda ji and then Swami Jyotirmayananda ji, Divine Life Society, and then now Yoga Research Foundation, and now whatever we are also guiding people, is that you need a holistic approach. You cannot just be centered into a small compartment. You have to open up wide, and therefore we follow the process of integral yoga, integrated yoga. Yoga means to connect with God. So when you are doing karma yoga, that is selfless service. When you are doing bhakti yoga, that is selfless devotion, parabhakti. And when you are doing meditation, that is dhyana yoga, meditation going deep. And then Jnana Yoga, study of scriptures. And all these four are not contradicting each other, rather they're complementary. And it's very important to understand that. It's like a chain, you pull one side and then the whole chain will eventually come. And that is the essential teaching. And that's what these sages and saints are doing. So it's all different aspects of a promotional movement. So Swamiji is using a beautiful example here. He says a person offering you a rose says that you should enjoy the beauty of the petals. And another one says, yeah, but you should learn from the thorns, and the thorns give strength, and then the rosebud comes up. So he's not talking about the petals, rather his knowledge is more on how to handle difficult circumstances from that rose's perspective. And the third one says, you don't even need to look at the rose. If you smell deeply, you can smell its fragrance and it'll come to you. So they're all talking about the same rose, but in different aspects of it. One is talking about the touch, the petals. The other one's talking about the adversity of the thorns and the strength needed to become a rose. And then the third one is talking about the fragrance and the permeating smell that gives peace and joy and happiness to everybody. But they're all talking of the same one rose. It's the same thing, but expressed differently. This is what is meant by saying Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. So these following point necessitates the different views, the mental structures of the teacher, his power or observation, his skill in expressing the inner spiritual experience, the needs of the followers and their mental level, and the need of the changing times. So this is why the teachings, the scriptures are the same, but they are imparted considering the time and the age. Thankfully, due to technology these days, things have become a little simpler. So we should learn that and therefore give that essential teaching in whatever way that works for the people in general. So this is what the sages and saints have been doing for a long time. Even during the Ramayana, when Valmiki ji wrote the Ramayana, it was in very deep Sanskrit that only scholars could understand. So while it was a beautiful literary work and exquisite, it did not gain that much popularity because it was centered only in the intellectual community. But when Tulsi Das ji came, and he wrote it in Avadhi. Avadhi was the common person's language. It seeped into the masses. It went into everybody, and that is when the Ramayana became so popular that it went international in so many countries, and the language, because people could relate to it much better. So that is what the teachings have to be. They don't have to be too difficult or too tedious, but rather expressing that knowledge, taking the essence, and then giving it to the people that they can relate to. That is important. So Sage Narada presents three different views of Parabhakti, followed by his own view. So as I had told you before and yesterday, so Sage Narada is going to take three enlightened sages who have reached that state of Parabhakti, and then he will give his own view also. So he's the fourth one in the process, in order to give a comprehensive picture of the mystic path of divine love. So what a beautiful blessing we are all having in the comforts of our home. We are listening to these profound, deep scriptures, and our sages and saints have gone in the forests. There were not even writing paper and things like that, where they transferred the Shruti or sutras from the disciple to from the guru to the disciple, and the lineage continued. So a lot of sacrifice has gone in, and for this reason, if we treat them as sacred, as holy, we also get those vibrations. We connect with the sages and saints who wrote these scriptures. We get their mercy, and from that, we are able to express that to others. So in light of what has been said, these different views are not contrary to each other, but rather they supplement one another. So they are basically supplemental. They refer to the devotional movement in relation to action, word, and thought. So we have to align these three things: what we think, what we speak, and how we implement it. Action. So I hope you're enjoying these sutras, and I will be bringing to you sutra number 16 tomorrow. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.